West of that is jank, and I love it. Did you ever want to play Enter the Gungeon, but in the Wild West, and as an undead skeleton? If the answer is yes, then West of Dead might be the game for you. Initially, I wanted to make a lot of ETG comparisons, but basically everything West of Dead does, ETG does better. West of Dead also makes the same mistakes as ETG. I will mostly refrain from making comparisons to ETG, since that game would absolutely destroy West of Dead. So, what is West of Dead? West of Dead is an arcade cover shooter set in the hell of the Wild West. And by hell, I mean purgatory, because you're not quite there yet. I would like to show you the game from the beginning, but there is no official option to restart your game, so fuck off. From what I can remember, you start in a crypt. There is a quick tutorial that shows you the base mechanics like dodging, taking cover, lighting up the room, picking up weapons, and shooting. At the end of the tutorial, you use one of the established mechanics, namely lighting up the room, and you get mauled to death. Not really, kind of already dead. I think this tutorial stuck in my mind because of the aforementioned mauling to death. You can't really dodge the attack from the monster, which is dumb, but by flipping one of the mechanics the player just learned, you manage to at least make the tutorial memorable. The game never does anything similar to it though, so I guess this was more for a fluke. Since you're not only an undead skeleton, but also a cowboy, you respawn at a saloon. There's nothing you can really interact with here except for the bartender and the old hag, but the dialogue is pretty much non-existent. It doesn't matter how far into the story you go, the dialogue stays pretty much the same. It would have been nice if the bartender at least commented on your story progression, but they don't. Another missed opportunity here is having the bartender serve you drinks that could improve your stats for the next run, or having the bartender as a run modifier. The old hag basically just tells you where you can find outlaws, which we will talk about once we get there. And this character also doesn't comment on your progress of the story, nor does she reward you if you get all the outlaws in one run. Again, missed opportunity. Once you leave the saloon, you enter the crypt and there will always be 2 weapons to pick up. You can unlock certain features later that give you more weapon choices and a charm in the beginning. So once you pick up the weapons and the charm, you enter the crypt and you can pretty much start killing with 4 different types of weapons: rifles, shotguns, pistols, and revolvers. Rifles can be shot rapidly, but if you want to hit the target and do damage, you need to hold the shoot button until the gun is stabilized and then let go. You can still miss the target, but that is very rare. Shotguns have the highest damage, no wind-up time, but they have a low ammo count, high reload time, and shorter range in comparison to rifles. Pistols are the middle ground between shotguns and rifles. They have no wind-up time, okay damage, slightly faster reload time, but low ammo count. Last but not least, revolvers have high ammo count, fast reload speed, no wind-up time, but low amount of damage. From my descriptions, you might think that shotguns are garbage, but they aren't, because the range of those things is huge. The rooms you can fight in are relatively small. Also, there is a mechanic called stun. So the enemy's health is shown as a green half circle on the ground where the enemy is standing. Inside of the half circle, there's another yellow half circle that depletes after every successful shot. This yellow bar depletes faster with shotguns. Should the enemy still be alive as the yellow bar depletes, the enemy will be stunned, but if you're close enough to the enemy will still damage you. It is not supposed to be this way, by the way. I'm pretty sure of it, and I died a few times because of that. Nothing major, but it's kind of annoying. There's a similar problem that affects the player. So when you have your gun out and you walk directly in front of a door, the door will not break. If you let the weapon holster, that happens automatically, and attack again, the door will be broken by the melee system. Now, the whole door thing is just mildly annoying. But guess what happens if you have your weapon out? No ammo, and you're close to an enemy. Exactly! The melee system is not triggered. Which leads us to the melee system. It sucks. There's really no reason to use it. It doesn't do enough damage to warrant you exposing yourself to an enemy by standing directly in front of it, where it can insta-kill you in certain levels. In later levels, there's also too many enemies in one room for you to comfortably walk up to an enemy and melee it, which might not even trigger because you are a millimeter away from the actual target. On top of that, cover breaks very easily, so you can't really rely on hit and hide tactics. There are certain items like the knives that you can use to increase your melee damage, but nothing is faster and safer than shooting at a target from a distance. If punches would stun the enemy every single time, that would change the situation. because it will give the player a tool to disable a certain enemy or certain enemies first, attack the others from afar, and then finish the original target off, but that's not how it works. Hence, the melee system is shit. Also, there should be a dedicated button for punches instead of the contextual melee hit. Since we talked about items, let's jump into that really quickly. Items can be found throughout the map in chests, special rooms, and at the vendor. We will talk about those in a second. Unlike the melee system, items are not garbage, but I don't like them. Their cooldown is really long, most of them don't do enough damage, a few of them provide utility, but most of them are just useless. For example, there's one item that can rebuild cover, but most encounters will end before all the cover is broken. There are a few enemies that can break your cover, but in that exact case, it would be better to focus on the enemy that can break your cover. So basically there is no situation where you would need to rebuild cover, and also there's a mechanic in the game that will rebuild the cover after a certain period of time. So this item is literally useless. Now, there's a system in place that allows you to improve the damage and cooldown of the items. Throughout the game you will find glowing skulls. Once you pick them up, you are given the choice to either improve your health / melee damage, your weapons damage, or your ability damage / cooldown reduction. If you spend a lot of points into items, it will do a ton of damage with lower cooldown time, but by spending a lot of points into ability, you will also be neglecting weapons damage and health. So while I think most items are generally speaking garbage, there's a system in place that can make some of them viable with the trade-off that you will be weaker in other areas. While I enjoy trying to force myself going for item runs, it is just much safer to invest your points into health and weapons damage. It is, to be fair, a balanced progression system, but I think most people would just naturally shift towards increasing their health and weapons damage, because it's more reliable. I mentioned a minute ago chests, special rooms, and the vendor. They're pretty much the same. In one of those you will find either a charm or weapon or an item. While you get free equipment from the special rooms and the chests, you have to buy those from the vendor. A quick side note to the vendor has an indication that you can talk to him, but you can't. He will sometimes comment when you step into the vendor room and step out again, but you can't really interact with the vendor. Like the bartender and the old hag, it doesn't do anything. It would be cool if you could refresh the shop by spending iron, or if the vendor would comment on your story progression every time you reached a certain point in the story. Special rooms were something that was introduced in an update, and I don't think they necessarily do what they're supposed to do. The only way to get in those special rooms is by defeating the chapter bosses and gaining an ability. The abilities, by the way, have no thematic or otherwise connection to the bosses. One ability allows you to break iron bars, the other gives you the power of teleportation, but only in special places, and another allows you to fall from heights. None of the bosses have these powers. Before the update, the special rooms led to different paths of the map, which they still do. The update added more special rooms, but instead of having an exit there, we have more equipment, which is cool, but I don't think changes anything in the gameplay itself. I think it would be better to add optional bosses behind those ability gates, because you already have chests and the vendor and the initial drop that gives you enough equipment. Adding a room or two that gives you even more equipment doesn't really change the gameplay. It doesn't make the abilities more useful. With the update, they also fixed a bunch of stuff like floating forever once you drop somewhere, or getting stuck to cover that was respawning. Generally speaking, this game has improved a lot since release, but there's still a lot of jank there. On top of all of those mechanics, we also have the sin economy. You can get iron and sins by killing enemies and then collecting their drops. Sins will make this buzzing sound and you can hear them from far away, which is annoying. Most drops get magnetized towards you, but you have to be at least close to them, which just slows down the gameplay since you have to walk back if iron or sins have not been picked up. So, what do you do with sins? Once you finish a level, you will reach a corridor where you can meet the witch and the bartender again. The bartender will fill up your health and your health canteen. The witch will allow you to unlock all sorts of equipment like new charms, new weapons, and new abilities. Here's the thing, it takes a really long time to unlock all of them, and since the main gameplay doesn't really change from run to run, you will probably not unlock all of the equipment because you will probably quit even before finishing the game. And I think this is the perfect place to talk about game updates, UI, and keyboard controls. When this game came out, it did not have key bindings, which sucks. Every game for PC better have some fucking key bindings or I'm gonna throw a tantrum every time. But they updated it and now it has key bindings. Still not perfect, but at least something. Even with this change, the menu that you use to navigate the updates sucks, because using a mouse wheel will not move the list along. It will just slightly push the list upwards or downwards, more like a suggestion. You have to grab one item and then move it in the direction you want to actually scroll. Here's the problem. They could change it in the next update, and then this point would be obsolete. I'm mentioning this because when this came out, all the stuff you unlocked was at the top and everything you did not unlock was at the bottom, meaning that the more you unlocked, the longer you had to scroll until you found a thing to unlock. As you can imagine, this didn't make sense, and so they changed it. Back to the witch though. The witch also serves as a character, but only as long as you bring her memories. After that, she's just an update menu. Like every character in this game, the witch feels like it's missing something. None of the characters comment on your story progression. None of the characters have any impact on gameplay except the witch. None of the characters build a relationship with you, and once they've spoken their few lines of dialogue, they just become brainless NPCs. There's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but it's a waste of potential, and by the end of the story we don't even know who those people are supposed to be. Who is the vendor and why is he in purgatory? Who is the bartender and why is he bartending in hell? Who the fuck is the old hag? Which is a valid question to ask, because she did our job before we did it. Are they like gods? Demons? Saints? We don't know. Unfortunately, I can't even show you any of the story because I cannot reset this game officially. From what I remember though, you can get cutscenes once you find a remnant/memory and bring it to the witch. Once you give the remnant to the witch, a little cutscene will play. The cutscenes are like minimally animated drawings with some exposition over it. It's very cryptic and I hate that they can't officially show it to you because the art is amazing and so is the voice acting. Anyways, you were a sheriff on Earth, you followed his cult leader, he shot you in the head, and there was a weird ritual somewhere there. Somehow you landed in purgatory and your job now is to basically kill this cult leader called the priest and send every lingering soul westwards, meaning hell. In every act after the first one you fight the priest, and after act 4 you find out that the priest is injustice itself. Once you kill injustice you find out that you're not done yet. To get the true ending you have to find 3 of your old friends and free their souls. Now, how many people do you think got the true ending? Under 1%, which is not surprising. To free your companion souls, you have to take their burden, which means that you can instantly die with one hit, and the only way to get rid of this burden is to kill 6 enemies. Taking the burden takes forever. You have to speak to the lost soul, you have to speak to the lost soul again, and then a pop-up comes up notifying you that you now have the burden, and then another pop-up pops up informing you that you can die. Why not give me the option to take the burden after the first dialogue? Also, I don't need a pop-up describing to me what the burden does. I have played this game many times. Now, taking the burden isn't the biggest challenge, but sometimes the game can screw with you. And it does fuck you over in one specific map. The battlefield. The battlefield is actually a pretty cool looking map. It looks like a bunch of trenches connected together, and every time you want to move from one trench to another, you have to climb up some ladders. Most enemies on this level are your typical long-range rifleman, bombardier, exploding hellhounds, nothing special. But then there's the general. I have no idea how to fight that enemy. The moment you are away from that thing, it will start shooting bombs with a huge area of effect consecutively at you 6 times in a row. So dodging is pretty much impossible, and standing behind cover doesn't do anything because 1. The bombs have splash damage, 2. It's 6 bombs in a row, and 3. The ton of damage it does. Now, fighting General alone isn't the biggest problem. Just get close to it and it will most likely not shoot at you with its fucking heat cannon. But if you also have a rifleman, bombardier, and the fucking hellhound around, there's no chance. The actual tactic against this enemy is not to fight, because you can do that in this game. Yep, just move along, no need to fight actually. That is the only reliable tactic to fight the general, is not to fight. I just don't understand the thinking process of the person who made the general. Did they think that to themselves, yeah, this game too easy, man. We need an enemy that can shoot a lot of bullets at once, that also has like splash damage and will also break any cover, and you can't really dodge it. I just don't get it, because there are similar enemies to the general. There's the butcher in the crypt and there's the samprist in the church. Both can be dodged reliably, but they can also insta-kill you. The general cannot be dodged and cannot be killed very easily, but they can still insta-kill you. The general is literal trash. Anyways, once you find your 3 BFFs and do not die to the general, you can beat Injustice one more time and it will be banished for the foreseeable future. It turns out you're kind of a god. Apparently we're Odin at some point. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I can only remember parts of the story because this game has incredible art and incredible voice acting by Ron Perlman, who played Hellboy. Other than that, it's pretty weak. Besides, I can't rewatch the cutscenes officially, which sucks. They should add the ability for me to rewatch the cutscenes to the game, honestly. What really stands out is the presentation. From the menus to the level and character design, everything looks super stylish. On the one side, there's this burning motif. You can see that specifically with the menu icons that look like they are consumed by fire and constantly burning. So is the character itself with its open skull, flames spewing out where it got hit by the bullet. The enemies disintegrate once they are killed, they literally light up. There's a mechanic that allows the player to bring light into the darkness. The in-game menus have this wooden look to it, reminding you that it's supposed to be the old Wild West with its wooden structures like saloons. The characters are a mishmash of zombies, western banditos, and western myths. The maps are actually bound to the character, but since I can't show you the story officially, I can actually prove that. Overall, the game shines when it comes to presentation. Every time you kill an enemy, there's the satisfying cling sound, and when you kill enemies one after another, it makes a row of those cling sounds. And then, there's all the jank. Sometimes you dodge, and you stick to cover, leaving you exposed to area attacks. Aiming feels weird on PC because it's a mix of sticky aim and free aim. The basic movement looks fucking great, but then you drop from a ledge, and that looks janky as hell. The menus look dope, but you can only switch between options with the number keys. What? The main character repeats the same line over and over again, often. Teleporting exists, but hey, guess what? Not every room has a teleporter. And guess also what? You can't move the map around when you're teleporting, which is a pain in the ass because sometimes you can't see the whole map. You fight this cool boss in the first chapter, and then you never see him again. But then you fight the priest, and then you fight the priest again, until you fight Injustice, which is cool, but then you keep coming back. And the only thing you can fight is outlaws, and the outlaws are just priests, but in different skins. Also, the outlaws get stuck in animation, often. It's just a lot of jank. Jank everywhere. Literally every system that is in this game has been done better in other roguelites, and yet I like this game more than the other ones. It repeats the same mistakes that the other roguelikes did in the past, and yet I like this game more than the other ones. There's so much jank in this game that I can see people dropping this game after the first act, and that is exactly what most people did. I can only recommend this game because it looks dope, but it will have to deal with a lot of jank. Like I said in the beginning, West of Dead is jank, and I love it. I highly recommend checking it out. Thanks for watching this video. I did also edit everything on stream, which you can check out in the description. I hope you humans take care of yourselves and have a nice, wonderful day.